Thanks, Mahu. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Lee Ingle. I'm the LTHT Grant Funding Manager. And what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about how I can support, or how I do support, the SMEs aligned to the pop-up. So I'm going to start with a little bit of an introduction about the structure of R&I at LTHT. We work unusually on a quad team sort of line management system, and you can see at the bottom a lot of our partners that we work with locally. But what I want to start to do is just really focus on that sort of middle oval and talk about some of the support teams that we have in R&I that can help support clinicians and academics doing research work. And it's worth identifying we have a whole host of teams around to support research at LTHT. We have a PPI team that can help support patient and public involvement. We also have myself, who's the grant funding manager, and I'll come on to a little bit about my role later. We also have a finance team that helps cost up funding opportunities. And we also have the academy, which is there to help train staff to do research. And also, specifically for this particular talk, we have the innovation team, and that's a team that I work closely with on a weekly basis. So I thought it'd be useful just to show you some of the outcomes from our team, the R&I team, over the last 12 months in the last financial year. And certainly in relation to my role, we've helped support 47 clinical teams to apply for research grants. And we've also helped support 36 staff applying for fellowships in that time. But also we've had a 10% growth in innovation pop-up members across that time period as well. And that just shows the range of activities that we cover in the R&I team in that particular year. So what do I do? What's my role, and how can I help support businesses locally? Well, my role is I'm part of the R&I team. I work within the business team, which is based at St James's Hospital. And the main role, I suppose, I have is to help find and disseminate research funding opportunities. I can help input into the applications as well. And also my role helps signpost for finance requests. So in terms of the role, this is sort of my day-to-day external activity. I start off really as an initial point of contact. I get looped into lots of different correspondence about doing research. I can help with defining and designing the research proposal that they may have. Then the main role, I suppose, is to identify relevant funding opportunities for staff and giving advice on the application itself. Part of my role is signposting to relevant colleagues. Obviously, we're a very large institution with lots of staff with specific roles, and often it's just trying to identify who's the most relevant person to deal with a particular query. And I also have a sort of widening role with some of the local academic institutions as well, and often it's a case of marrying up a clinician with an academic to help move on a research application to the next stage and helping finding those relevant collaborators. And there is certainly in terms of research, there is often a crossover between all these different areas, whether it's innovation, whether it's research, whether it's audit, service evaluation, quality improvement. Often my role sort of links between all of these, because often a research bid will come from a previous clinical audit or a service evaluation that is adapted and then grows into a more formal research bid later on. And when we're looking at a recipe for success around research, a big part of it is aligning really all of these different factors. And my role, I suppose, starts at near the beginning around the funding and trying to identify those appropriate resources to be able to undertake a project. And this is where I come in at this early stage, often what we call the sort of pre-application stage. One thing that I'd always recommend is to look at what are the research priorities in your particular area. And the James Lind Alliance is excellent for identifying what those particular priorities are. So if you look at this at the moment, this is the James Lind Alliance really sort of looks at those, trying to identify what those priority areas are. And there's an example here of one. This is the top 10 priorities nationally in heart disease around technology. And you can see here that if you can sort of align what you do, what your business does, for example, with one of these priorities, it does tend to increase the risk of success because you can say that what you're doing is aligning with a national priority. And in terms of the different types of funding that I support, working at LTHT, a lot of it is supporting clinicians around applying for fellowships, but also it could be down to sort of project or program grants. A lot of my work is involved in PPI, so helping develop an application by getting patients or the public involved in it at an early stage. And I have colleagues that specialise in that particular area. And also it could be travel grants to help, for example, send a clinician to a different lab to help learn a new skill, or develop or work with a particular piece of technology that would help develop their grants in the future. So I work closely with the innovation team. I meet them on a weekly basis. We have a Monday morning BD&I meeting. And what I do is I will scour the most recent funding opportunities, identify grants that I think will be relevant to pop-up members. And they will be passed on to the innovation team. And the innovation team, if they think they're relevant, can then share those with the pop-up membership. We tend to focus more on national level, so UKRI type funding opportunities, but also NHR as well. And then also we also work locally with the Leeds hospital charity that also has quite relevant opportunities. So an example of a current opportunity, this is an MRC one that's available at the moment. This one opened last week, and it's looking at early stage development of new healthcare interventions. There are opportunities between 50 and 300K here. And the idea is that this funding is to help generate critical data in a new or repurposed medicine, device, or test. So these are the sorts of things that are available at the moment. There's also a connectivity award, which has opened in June, which still remains open, which is an EPSRC opportunity. And the idea of this is to work in collaboration with a higher education institution to develop a health technology hub, which is this one here. So this was the hub opportunity with higher education to try and develop a health partnership. And that can be a number of different SMEs working together with a university to help develop a certain area. And I'll just go back to the previous one. The Connectivity Award, which is also open, is really about building connections to help scale up or skill up a particular individual who might want to learn a new technique somewhere else. And the idea is that the Connectivity Award helps to do that by paying for travel and subsistence costs while that person is in that new environment. The other thing to say is that with the charity, the Leeds Hospital charity, They also have funding opportunities, and in September there is a Innovations in Healthcare call which will open, which again might be interesting to members. And if you are interested in that area, I would suggest that you look on the Leeds Hospital Charity website, which will have all of that information attached. So thanks very much for your time. My name is Lee Ingle. I've left my email address on there. If anybody has any queries or would like any information about the latest funding opportunities, please do get in touch with me. I'm happy to take calls, maybe arrange a meeting and talk about what's available at that point. So thank you very much. Happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Lee. Do we have any questions coming in online? And yeah, we're just going to sort out the slides so we make sure that it's not in presenter mode this time. Sorry, can you just, somebody's got their hand up.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. So I would like to ask, is there any page where we can track these grant opportunities that you showed in several slides, last couple of slides actually? So where can we track them?
Yes, so what I do is any funding opportunities that are available and currently open, I will send them to Rob. And Rob, I guess can you make them available somewhere for, yeah. So Rob will then share them. Can you share them to me?
Sharing them.
Yes. So Rob will then share those current opportunities with the pop-up membership.
That would be much appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions?
It's me next. It's Marcus.
Thank you so much for that, Lee. So next, I just look at the agenda. So we have Marcus Orton, who is a senior innovation growth specialist with the Innovate UK business growth team. Who's going to be covering health-related funding, resources, opportunities and approaches, and Innovate UK perspective. So over to you. We'll just double check. Let me just look on the information that it's. Okay, that's all good.
And normally, how long will it take off?
20 minutes or
20.
so.
All right, let's see how the time flies. Okay, it's a bit unusual. Yeah, it's great to be here, both physically and online. And I think we learn a lot by having these conversations. So Lee, thank you very much. I know that we'll pick up on a few threads there. So yeah, very pleased to be back in the room here. As Lee talked, now let me just see if I can get there. Am I clicking on the right part of the? Is it part of the display? How do I get rid of the?
It's minimised. If you just minimise that.
Can you do that bit for us? Cool. Right, and then I'll hopefully. Let's get the mouse back on my bit of the screen. Get the mouse on here so that I can change the slides. We'll do it that way. Brilliant. Okay, let's try. Oops. Okay. As Lee talked about, he provides quite an overview or has access to grant funding from a lot of different areas. Innovate UK are one of the 9 domains of Innovate UK, sort of UKRI overall funding. So what I'm going to do now is I will touch on some particular areas of health, but also provide an overview of what Innovate UK themselves are doing, because in many respects we're sector agnostic. However, in running healthcare systems, there are many components of funding that is particularly peculiar to health, be it disease prevention or cure, and also running hospitals effectively or healthcare systems in the wider economy. So there may well be synergies with many of the businesses that we're working with. Our work as Innovate UK is part of government funding into the UK. So what I'm showing with you here within this sort of diagram is useful to say it is a complex environment. and there is a lot to be aware of and to work with. For your sakes, in coming to obtain both funding and support from Innovate UK, you are not alone. And the principle that Innovate UK Business Growth, of which I'm a team member, is that they've put people alongside the money. So what you'll be used to is having a monitoring officer with a grant award that's made. Now you can have an innovation and growth specialist, which is my job title in this role, to accompany you, and that company is there along before and after the grant award or the equity raise that you're involved with. So you can subscribe at a number of levels to our support. And I've been in this role for 5 years, and I'm working with one client, and I've worked with a few of the clients for as long as that. So it's quite a different remit to many of the other schemes that are in the wider economy, where you may get business support for maybe a day or a few days over a series of weeks. So I think it's worth explaining some of that to you. There are names on here that we will touch on. Now, I feel very privileged to be part of this network here in Leeds, and yet at the moment, Innovate UK don't specifically appear on this landscape view, which is published by sort of the Leeds Innovation sort of initiatives. So at the same time, I am working with many of the organisations, and we as a team are familiar to many of the organisations on this landscape. And we are encouraged to, where appropriate, refer the people that we're working with into this ecosystem as much as you know more about us. You will say, well, why can't Marcus or Innovate UK actually help us? Because either our knowledge and expertise is complementary to what is already happening, or our capacity. Because this is the challenge. You may be busy, we may be busy, but there might be synergy. So we might complement our capacity, but there also might be synergies. Now, going back to Innovate UK Business Growth, the topic of today's talk is really about the funding landscape. And this is a diagram that's used as a generic, but it sort of starts with investment readiness. Now, what we're saying here is that investment may come from an angel investor. It is also coming from the government. A grant is an investment in you as an organisation, and some of the funding need not be a grant. It need not be in return for shares. It could be a loan. So it could be a temporary facility, depending on your status and your performance as a business. And we as a team are briefed on what these schemes require and how they work, and also we come from a background that we are familiar with these schemes as well, and or can refer you to people that can help. So there are a variety of tools and models to work with, and essentially what we're wanting to do is to deploy successfully the capabilities, the research, the innovation within the UK economy, in part because there's a remit there. We are within a global community. We want to see sales and marketing develop because that's good for the economy as well as good for the healthcare systems. And what we're doing within the support that we provide is helping you as innovators, as business leaders or contributors, to appreciate the strategies that you're going to pursue. So not just what you're going to do today, but what is going to help you reach that longer term impact. Now, one of my big features of working in the healthcare environment is how partnerships are absolutely vital. For many years, I was going into orthopedic surgical environments and very aware of how it's a team and a relationships-based activity. And I use some of that experience in what I'm doing as a business. Buy chains, there's funders, there's customers, there's clients and stakeholders to work with.
Sorry.
Okay.
Definitely make sure you've muted while we've got the presenters on.
Because he's probably finished
Oh,
everything.
I'll keep going. So essentially, in the work that we can provide, and we typically work in up to 6 month sprints, and we can work over an extended period of time, we provide a review of funding and support for securing funding and support. And some of the topics here are outlined, so grants, loans, investments, and also other opportunities that you might be familiar with where there are contracts. So SBRI is a term that you might have heard of, and it's now called Innovate UK Business Contracts. So it's been rebranded, and this is one of the things that we've got to be careful of, is the renaming of stuff that we've known about for a long time. So the contracts themselves are very similar, but they are money for you to spend. So there's no match to create. It is. So there's a variety of things to look at. What I will do after this talk is also put into the chat and also share with Rob, who's sending around the emails afterwards, many of the links that are referred to in these slides. So where you were saying, where do we find indication of where the grants are? What's there on the left-hand side is the UK.gov grant awarding listings where new ones are published all the time. We are also being briefed on the Horizon funding, Eureka, and other systems as well. So there is within this slide deck a lot of detailed information about the Horizon funding, and we are very pleased to be part of the latest round. And having been sort of disassociated through the Brexit period, we are now more formally recognised and very much welcomed by our European counterparts as participants, not least because we understand that the arrangement is that where a UK participant is awarded a grant, the UK government puts the money in, the European government doesn't have to. So then they can do more money, they can do more work with that particular fund because of the UK contributions. That's an anecdote, don't quote me on that, but that's my understanding of how it works. But they also like working with us. And so we can come back to that in more detail, and we are getting familiar with it. We're at the beginning of 5 years of funding, and we're wanting to take and seeing that there are quite a few organisations wanting to participate, maybe as a small contributor. So we'll learn from that this year and do more next year as the subsequent rounds open up. And there's a particular health theme in there that is top of the list and very well resourced. So it's something that we ought to be looking at. Now, I'm talking to you as Innovate UK Business Growth. And the slide that I've put in the middle and the link that I put is to a counterpart of Innovate UK called Business Connect. Now, when a grant is awarded, that grant will have been decided by and contributed to by this team within Business Connect. They'll go out into the economy and work with the government and say, what should we fund next? And then there are announcements by them and the briefing videos and sessions and all the documentation that goes with it from Business Connect. So as much as coming to us and subscribing to our services, please make yourselves familiar with what was called the KTN, the Knowledge Transfer Network, is now called Innovate UK Business Connect. And the image that I put on there is a particular community of practice that they've developed that may resonate with a lot of the work that you're involved with, which is to do with healthy living and well-being. So this is part of sort of government ambitions in some respects to avoid people going into hospital where possible. So actually keeping people well within the economy is a really good idea. Following on from this is our European perspective. And again, I'll put the link into the chat for this part. So the Enterprise Europe Network is definitely worth knowing about. And for my part, I'm working with about a dozen people within the UK that are either active members or followers of the Health Sector Group. And the Health Sector Group is particularly focused on both cooperation and partnerships as much as funding at an international level. And there's as many non-European countries involved in the European and the EEN, as we call it, the Enterprise Europe Network, as there are European countries. So this includes Canada, the States, Japan, South Korea, and so on. So there's cooperation at a very significant level and huge opportunities of working with that. So I've just put on the bottom there is now a Health Sector Group website, which is a new development for us, and it gives you some explanation of the type of work and ways of engaging with us at an international level, as well as the work that we're doing as Innovate UK at a national level. So these are the three types of service that we Innovate UK in summative terms can help you with. The growth service, for a small number of paperwork, we can spend about 7 hours worth of our time with you looking at an issue, maybe helping you with some referrals, even giving you some review of a grant application that you've drafted. So we won't write a grant, but we can certainly give you some feedback. And after a few years of doing this, and some of us have done a lot, we've seen a lot of grants. So we have a good idea of what has been successful and where the gaps are often enough. The high growth services requires a little bit more due diligence and some paperwork processes for you to go through. However, it gets you onto a scheme where there could be one or several of us working with you on any of the topics that we've talked about there, be it finance and funding, internationalization, and or your business development and innovation. And those will run in sort of 3 to 6 month sprints. So we'll develop a nominal action plan. This is what we're going to work on with you. And then we have to provide a summative support at the end of that could lead on to us doing more work with you in another period of time. So we are government funded support for your initiative. We are, so now it's something of a tortuous journey, so I'm not going to go through this, but there's lots of touch points. This illustrates we will accompany you or can accompany you on your innovation journey. The remit that we have is that we're working with innovative companies that are going to scale. So we want to work with businesses that have a decent prospect of moving forward. These are some of the criteria that we're looking for. So they have to be fewer than 250 employees, and we're looking for an indication of the type of growth that you're going to that you want to achieve or that you have already achieved. And the bottom left-hand corner is that the culture, the nature of your business is one where you are interested in having external support. So there are people there. Now, we know what we're doing, Marcus. Thank you very much. Can we have some money? Yes, we can help you a little bit, but actually they're on your own. So we help and adapt our work according to the nature of the business. And if you're up and flying and you're good without us, it allows us to go and work with other people. To give you some ideas, though, of some of the tools and resources that we have, on the left-hand side is a list of bullets of topics that we can work with you on. And because we are well briefed by Business Connect and other agencies, the catapults and people like yourselves, we can be a very good, useful touch point for sort of saying, well, if that's what you want to do, we can introduce you or refer you to relevant parties. In some cases, that might be grant writers or grant reviewers. And within our team, we do have people that have worked as project monitoring officers for SMART Awards and Biomedical Catalyst. So not only do they know what a good grant looks like, they also know about some of the behavior and some of the procedures and documentation that you will need to follow when you're actually engaged in a grant. Because those can be as nervous times as anything else when you've got the award and then 3 months later they say, can we see all the paperwork please, and is your what's the word, there's a commercialization plan up to date? And I've certainly had clients going, what do I start with? So having been in that boat myself and other people around me, we can provide you that sounding board and some advice on things. There are particular small grants that if you're on the high growth scheme, we can then assist you or provide you some access to. So it may be known that we have an RTO, a catapult grant, that is there to encourage the larger research institutions such as the high value manufacturing catapult, the medicines discovery catapult, or the digital catapult to work with smaller organizations. So there's this 15 grand sort of seed fund that enables a business to engage in some work from them. We've had prototypes made and also market access research done that's been pivotal both to the business development plans and also presenting a case, an independent case, to either a grant funder that this is a valid case or to an investor. We also have an IP audit scheme because intellectual property is one of the foundations of running a good business. And there's a small fund that can be made available to you in order to help a legal team take a close look at your patent work and many other things too, such as your contractual relationships, your control of confidentiality, your branding and your trademarking. Because if you're going to deploy a good idea into the UK or international markets, and then you find out that somebody else already has that same name or brand, you can spend time and money on diffusing that conflict. So the legal team will help you look at those issues, and we have a small award that you can apply for to help, and also tools and techniques to help you make good use of that legal time and resource. On the European side and the EEN side, we have a whole range, and I'll put the link into the partnership opportunities, which is a huge database, about 5,500 opportunities at any point in time for many sectors. We then will have helping ways of filtering through those, and we have a health-related catalogue that filters down to those topics, and also provide support for partnership arrangements. And some of those topics are definitely European counterparts looking for contributors to Horizon funding. So this is finding a very useful tool for actually linking up. We have a number of other schemes, such as the Global Explorers Fund, that has facilitated our businesses travelling to other parts of the world, to conferences and to meet other research and innovators. There's the Global Business Innovation Programme, which is a week-long exercise of going to strategic locations, and there's one coming up as a medtech one into Singapore in the next few months. And I'm supporting a business going out into the USA later this year. So they've been successful, and they're now going out on a health tech program at the moment. The Global Incubator Program is a longer program. It's over 6 months. So if you've gone through the earlier stage or you have a mature understanding of the market, we also help people go into those other domains. Again, many of these are themed, and several of them are health related. And then we have the Horizons concept, which I'll just touch on briefly. But this is the headline information for the Singapore Health and Med Technologies program that's live, just gone live in the last week. And we will be taking people out into the market in November. And we'll provide the links for this. Am I running out of time?
No.
All right. No, this is cool. So I'll touch now on some of the Horizon opportunities. And I was really encouraged at a meeting that we ran last week to hear, for example, that Leeds University have a team that are very familiar with Horizon grant applications. So where we as small businesses or innovators in our own space may have an awareness, we do know that we have partners close by that can help us with this. At the same time, the lady in the corner of this screen here is called Jo Frost. And one of the facilities that we have both in the UK and at an international level is that there will be a national contact point, an NCP. And on that on the EEN website there's a whole way of tracking down who your NCP is. Jo has run with others, so she's the health specific NCP. And with other colleagues within the economy, she runs workshops to help understand what Horizon is about with regards to health. She has some capacity to review proposals and to provide feedback. And she's also working with a number of us in the UK economy at running discrete events. So there was an event a few months ago in Cambridge where we brought a number of innovators related to health together with Jo and Claire Griffin, who's the corresponding national contact point for the EIC funding awards. And the insight that they gave them in a sort of a half-day session was really formative and encouraging. And we know that some of the companies that attended that have got through to sort of the next round of those grant applications. So we're learning a lot. And then we're also working with dedicated people in the field who are briefed by the European authorities or the funding authorities, and then working with us. So it's like a whole sort of team exercise of working together. As a positive note, the European structure, here's some details. There are several pillars. This is terminology that you might become useful to. We're talking about over 5 years, 54 billion euros in the domain that would be applicable to us, and health is at the top of that list. My understanding, the health-related fund is around 8 billion over the 5 years, a huge amount of money. And on one of these, I think, if I click back, I think there's a note in here about the success rate in the last round for UK applicants was very high. certainly much higher than Smart Awards and some of the other things that we've done. They're hard work and you don't get through to that, but if you're willing to put it in, the odds are good, reasonable. Answer good. 8.3 there, it's on the slide. This is pillar 3. And there are some really good and encouraging topics within the Horizon work where the smaller entities might fit in very well. It's only the destination 3, tackling diseases and reduce disease burden, that might be more applicable to a hospital. Staying healthy is destination 1. Living and working in a health promoting environment is 2. So there could be work that you're doing that falls in, or many of the businesses that we're working with could very well plug and play into 1 and 2. 4, 5 and 6, maintaining innovative, sustainable, globally competitive health-related industry. And we know that within the NHS, and this is something that we're looking at, is other topics of actually being successful with the innovation that you have. Do you understand procurement? Do you understand data governance? Have you got your sustainability strategy laid out in a way that will be accepted by NHS procurement and will help to save the global environment as well? So, and then number 5, unlocking the tools, the full potential of tools and technologies and digital solutions for a healthy society. The range of these is huge. Now, the opportunity is to look within these because the European authorities have decided or prioritised certain topics within those. So some of what we're getting a grasp of is those are the headlines. We might be able to bring our businesses under those diverse range, but certainly very well aligned topics into particular themes that are important going forward. So we're learning and we'll be pleased to take your feedback on it. It's another slide there with some more detailed explanation of what those current topics appear to be. We and Joe and other people can help. And then there's another whole topic again, which is around cancer. So we know that there are things that are priorities. This illustrates a complementary piece, which is the B2 Match environment, which we're familiar with and work with, which is an events scheduling and facilitating tool. These events are virtual, hybrid, and face-to-face, and around the globe. We've certainly used this to promote and support events for many of the people that we're working with. For example, Medica is really well known in Germany. And the platform associated with that is open for weeks or days before the event and afterwards. So you can then configure meetings and follow up around an event, as well as publish through this platform who you are so that people can contact you and also what your innovation is. So it's another tool for actually saying, we're here, this is what we're thinking of doing. Does anybody want to talk and work with us about it? So this is a brief outlook, and there's probably more information. This was actually a carryover from an earlier presentation. So this is an engage. We've got a lot going on. We'll be pleased to hear more from you and to develop it. I think this today is great to hear about other things that are happening, and I hope we can share more in the time and weeks ahead. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Huge amount of support available for innovation. If you've got any questions, do feel free to ask Marcus. There might be something in the chat. That's from previous. Just give it a second or 2 for questions in case anybody's got anything that they'd like to ask. And we'll be sharing a lot of these resources. I think Marcus is going to share them in the.
I'll put them in the chat now.
Yes, brilliant. Yes. If we don't have any other questions, then we'll move on to our third speaker of the day. So we've got Charlotte Self joining us online, who's one of our grant managers for Leeds Hospital Charity, and she's going to be covering investing in innovations, Leeds Hospital Charity funded opportunities. So over to you, Charlotte, if you're able to share your screen.
Yep, will do. Just give me 2 seconds while I just get my slides shared.
No problem.
It's thinking about it. It's loading. Okay.
Hello.
Can you see my slides, Mahua?
Yes.
Yeah, but not my notes, just my slides.
Decide.
Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Charlotte and I am the Grants Manager at Leeds Hospitals Charity. So today I'll be giving an overview of who Leeds Hospitals Charity are for anyone that doesn't know, some examples of things that we fund, current funding opportunities you can apply for, and some top tips on making a grant application towards the end of the presentation. And if you were at the VR session a couple of months ago, then some of these slides will be familiar, so bear with me. So who are Leeds Hospitals Charity? We are the charity that champions, supports and gives thanks to the NHS, bringing together thousands of donors so we can make a real difference to the people and patients of Yorkshire. We do this by funding life-saving equipment, treatments, research into rare diseases and home comforts, whatever will make the biggest impact to the people who need it most. And we have a lovely, big, ambitious aim at Leeds Hospitals Charity, which is for Leeds Teaching Hospitals to be the best hospital in the healthiest city in the UK. So last year, we were really proud to approve 232 applications and awarding £3.29 million. This represents a significant number of impactful projects within many different areas of the hospital, supporting patients, families and staff. The projects we funded last year are projected to directly benefit 1.46 million patients, their families and staff. This is the tangible impact that we strive for, and it's testament to the incredible work done by LTHT staff with funding from Leeds Hospitals Charity. 40% of those approved applications came from individuals or teams that had never applied to the charity before. We've made real efforts in the past sort of 18 months to engage with new staff within the trust through engagement stalls, attending meetings, doing events like this, and also one-to-one conversations with staff. An example of sort of an innovation that we funded. So we've been supporting Leeds Children's Hospital with the introduction and expansion of the VR service, where we've provided several virtual reality headsets that assist children in coping with some treatments or procedures that gives them an alternative focus and an escape from the hospital environment. They can also be used before or after a procedure to help a child relax. It's been found that some minor procedures can be done with VR as a distraction instead of using a general anaesthetic. For example, toenail removal, I think, was one of the procedures that was done, and it can help to reduce a child's time spent in hospital and make their overall experience more positive. So on to our funding opportunities. So we have a programme of themed funding opportunities which are open for Leeds Teaching Hospitals staff to apply for, and that includes staff with honorary contracts. You can find out more on our website and sign up to our newsletter, of which this is a QR code, but you can also just navigate to it from our website to find out about funding opportunities when they're launched. So what opportunities do we have open now? We have 4 opportunities that are open at the moment. One of them being a partnership with Marie Curie, so with £300,000 of funding available for research proposals in Leeds that aim to improve the quality of care and discharge for people with palliative and end-of-life care needs in hospital in Leeds. Wellbeing Trolley, we're offering wards, outpatient clinics and departments across Leeds Teaching Hospitals the chance to have a free wellbeing trolley to support patients and their families. The trolley can provide things like free snacks, fruit, hot drinks and toiletries, helping to improve the hospital experience. We've piloted this at the Children's Hospital. It's been very positive and we're now looking to expand this to more areas. A couple more opportunities that are open now. So the Improving Outcomes in Mental Health for Children and Young People research opportunity. This is for research that will have a direct impact on children treated at Leeds Teaching Hospitals for mental health conditions or medically unexplained symptoms. And Boost Your Competitive Edge. This opportunity is funded by Leeds Hospitals Charity, but delivered by Leeds Teaching Hospitals. Pre-application support for research career development fellowships. I've just realised that my notes for this opportunity are slightly wrong, but the information is on our website, and funding can include protected time to develop your application, funding for training, patient and public involvement and academic supervision. So coming later in the year, we have a couple of other funding opportunities, more details to come soon, hopefully, but we'll be launching another innovation in healthcare opportunity in September. In October, there'll be a funding opportunity about tackling health inequalities with proposals that look to improve equity in treatment and care. More details will be available closer to the time on our website and also will be communicated via our newsletter. So to help you in any applications that you might make to us, here's an overview of the application process. Each of our funding opportunities might be slightly different, but in general, this is the sort of process that's followed. So eligibility, so staff who are employed by Leeds Teaching Hospitals or who hold a relevant honorary contract, for example, researchers from the University of Leeds or Leeds Beckett that are working at Leeds Teaching Hospitals are eligible to apply to us. The idea, discuss your idea with your colleagues, relevant teams in the trust, and you can also book a one-to-one meeting with a member of the grants team to discuss your application before you make it. Relevance. Read the guidance for the opportunity you're applying for. It will contain guidance on how to answer all the questions and the scoring criteria. So these are the building blocks to help you write a really great application. Make your application. Each funding opportunity will have a slightly different way of applying, so please ensure you've read the guidance and website and understand what you need to do. For example, we recently closed a patient experience funding opportunity, and the first stage was a video or a presentation rather than a written application. Review and decision. There are a few different ways that decisions are made on applications depending on the type and the value, the different groups of charity staff, trustees, LTHT staff and independent experts are involved. And then monitoring and evaluation. So all successful applicants are required to submit either a monitoring and evaluation form or a report. It's very important that we can monitor the outcomes and outputs of applications that we've funded. So you're sat there thinking, but Charlotte, what are your top tips in making an application? Well, wait no longer, I will tell you. So write a clear and compelling application. Please follow the guidance for the specific opportunity you're applying for. As I said on the previous slide, it will contain guidance on how to answer each question and the scoring criteria. Lots of different people with different knowledge and experience are involved in reviewing and making decisions on applications, so please don't assume we have any prior knowledge of the area that you're working in. And remember, it is a competitive process and only those applications which score highly against the scoring criteria will be successful. A bit of a processy one, so ensuring that supporting documents are present and correct. For example, support from your CSU tri-team or equivalent, and ensuring costings and quotes are correct and include VAT. And if you're not sure if you need to include VAT, give us a shout and we can give you some advice on that. And then please follow any relevant trust processes, for example, medical and scientific equipment process, corporate planning, business cases, DIT. Then I also have some top tips from Wasim. So Wasim is our Trusts and Foundations fundraiser, and this is him. He makes onward applications to other charitable trusts and foundations to fund projects. And the next two slides are his top tips in making an application to a trust or foundation. Charitable trusts and foundations are charities with an independent and sustainable income source, and there are over 9,000 of these in the UK, and they exist to make grants to individuals and or organisations. I thought these would be helpful to include because not everyone who's attending today is eligible to apply to Leeds Hospitals Charity, and these tips could apply to anyone making an application to a trust or a foundation. So be short, sharp and succinct, but provide all the information requested. People don't have the time to read masses of text. Address the question and provide all the detail requested as succinctly as possible. Avoid acronyms and language that would be difficult to understand. People don't have the time to decipher it. Include an executive summary, your project in a paragraph, including the costs, so the reader knows at a glance what it is you're trying to do. Focus on the why instead of the what and the how. Why is your project needed? What impact it will have, how it will make a difference. This is what funders want to know rather than the detailed mechanisms of what the project is and how it will work. The what and how should be brief and the why should be detailed. Tailor your application. Write your application as if you're speaking to the funder and no one else. Find out what their objectives are and how your project will address these. Most organisations have values. How does your project align with these? Replicate the funder's language and technology. The evolutionary magic of storytelling. We are hardwired to emotionally respond to stories. Use stories based on your experience that are relevant to the project. This will help to make your application feel personal and heartfelt. And another 5 top tips from Wasim. A picture paints 1,000 words. Use pictures wherever you can to help bring your application to life. The power of thank you. If you've previously benefited from a funder's support, mention this and say thank you. Not everyone will do this, and it helps your application to stand out. The phone is your friend. Speak to the funder if possible. Relationships are cultivated on the phone. The partnership dynamic. The funder needs you to fill their objectives as much as you need them to fund the project. Convey that your project will be delivered in partnership with the funder. Seek feedback. This is so important to help with refining your application and identifying areas for improvement. So just to end my presentation, if there are lots of ways you can get involved with Leeds Hospital's charity, for example, fundraising events, volunteering. We even have a lottery. So here's just a few other ways that you can get involved with Leeds Hospital's charity here. And here are my contact details and the contact details for the wider team and our website. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Charlotte. Are you okay to share some of those opportunities in the chat as well? I know there are a couple of website links that you've referred to.
Yeah,
I think that in the Q&A, Natalie, would you like me to just read this out for you? So, hi, we are occupational therapy students on our role emerging placement in a service in LTHT. So if it's a silly question, but do you know if there's an equivalent to this within this trust or any of these that would be able to, anything that they'd be able to apply to, basically?
So LYPFT did have their own charity. I don't know the current status of that, but I can do some Googling and find out. Generally, we can only accept applications from staff who are employed by Leeds Teaching Hospitals, which can be an honorary contract. But generally, if someone is solely employed by LYPFT, it would depend on the project. If the project would impact patients who are treated at Leeds Teaching Hospitals, then possibly. But we'd need a conversation about it. But definitely something we can talk about further.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for Charlotte? Yeah, Molly, go ahead.
Hi there. I just wondered if you're working as an SME, but working with clinicians on a project at Leeds, does that kind of, if you're working on a funding application in collaboration with them, does that become eligible? Or does
yes, so there are cases when that has happened. So, but it would need to be someone from the trust team that you're working with that would make the application to us and sort of be that like lead applicant. But if you're working in partnership and the project is being delivered in the trust, then that's definitely something that would be eligible.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. That's something we'd be happy to facilitate here at the pop-up. So if you don't have any clinical connections yet, so come and have a chat with us. Do we have any final questions for Charlotte before we move on to our final presenter of the day? Does it look like, but we've got some really good feedback in the chat, so thank you so much, Charlotte.
Thank you.
So on to our final presenter, we've got Ian Sharp, CEO of Future Health Innovation Limited, here with us, who's going to be talking about how to gain funding to bring your healthcare to market. So over to you, Ian. Just get your slides ready.
Thanks, Rob. Hello, I'm Ian Sharp, and you might think, being the last speaker of the day, everybody said everything, but I occupy an interesting niche, somewhere between what Lee talked about and what Marcus talked about, and that is the development aspect. And actually, so it comes in slightly as you're doing applied research, but more of the market-focused development aspects of developing new technology. And if I get the slides to move on.
Let's return. Does that work? No.
Well,
Focus it back up there. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. So what normally happens when I get involved is people come and ask about developing their company. They've often started, but haven't got all the partnerships and collaborations in place that you need. And actually, our speakers today have touched on that adequately well. Innovation is a collaboration game, and the better your collaborations, the wider your collaborations, the better chance of success. But what people often come with is, I need to raise, I'm going to pick a number, but I'm going to raise 4 million quid and I'm going to bring this technology to market. Well, if you've not done your research, you've not proven that this is ready for market, it follows all the criteria from a medical safety point of view, it meets all the approvals, then you're not ready. You're not at that point. So that's my point about being, it's usually too early. And actually there's a mindset a problem sometimes where people have heard that you can go out and raise equity backed investment on an idea, and that's phenomenally difficult. So the routes that the previous speakers were talking about, using grants, is something that I've cultured over the last 18 years of helping early stage companies. And we use grants to de-risk development. So you go through a formal process of breaking your project down and really saying what you're going to prove, how you're going to prove it, testing and trialing it in a closed environment, and doing it safely. And that's especially true in healthcare. So the other thing that happens is someone finds a grant call, rings me up avidly and says, I've seen the call. It's in 2 weeks. Can you help? No, I can't help. Well, I might be able to. I'll come back to that. So what does it take practically to access funding? Actually, it's months worth of work, if not years worth of work, to build up the right profile. Don't get dissuaded. That's not what I mean to do. So if you've done all the background work, so you've got a good collaborative team of clinicians, researchers, technology developers, business support, then you might be able to put an application together in about 6 weeks. If you haven't got all that preparation, it's 3 to 6 months. And this is aggressive, really. This is quite aggressive. So the 2 weeks thing, just stop asking, please. Please. So I thought I'd move on to how I got a grant, an SBRI no less, in 2 weeks, just because that's the thing that proves the rule, right? So a doctor came to me, a GP, a few years ago, and he said, I've got this great idea. And we sat down and we talked about it, and he said, I've got a technology partner. Great, okay, so we interrogated that. I set my company up, great. How long's it been set up? Oh, a year, great. I've applied for an SBRI, but we didn't get it. Okay, can I see it? And can I see the feedback? Where were the gaps? It looked good, but he needed more depth in his technology capability and his management team as well. And he needed more around testing and trialing as well. He also needed some more research as well, because his product was data heavy and he needed a view of machine learning and early stages of AI to be able to really make it fly and get the economic impact. He'd considered the economic impact, which is phenomenally good. So he'd done market research that showed there was a need, a demand. And in fact, the problem he was solving had been in the national news. So it was really a problem. And strategically, he was part of an organisation that was acutely interested in fixing this problem. So he'd got a natural partner to test and trial it as it developed in a safe way, and he understood that as he was a clinician. He'd also got a very good eye on the procurement aspect of how services are procured in the NHS, and so he could easily look at the way this would be implemented and what the business model side of it would be. And that's also critically, well, it's critical to your application. So you've got to have a well-rounded application. So we had that meeting. I went away and I said to him, well, you know, maybe 6 weeks if we can find a decent call. So I did exactly what Lee talked about early on, went online, looked at the calls and went, brilliant, there's an SBRI, but it's in 2 weeks. So I rang him up using the phone, whoever said that, Charlotte, I think, using the phone. There's a call, you've got to apply for it. So why would I break all the rules that I know are there because they work? Not just the preparation, but the eligibility and the scope were absolutely spot on. So the key thing about looking for a grant, especially in the development phase, is if you're not eligible, your company's the wrong shape or the wrong type, forget it. And if you're out of scope, even a little bit, forget it, because it's so competitive that you need to be in the right ballpark. This was all written for him. I don't know why, I don't know how, just timing, serendipity. So I said, you've got to apply. And he said, I can't. He said, it's £1 million, you can't not apply, right? Okay, so SBRI comes in 2 phases, so it's £1 million-ish if you get over the first phase and prove all the things that you're claiming. So he said, I'm busy, I can't do it, I've got no time. I said, send me your stuff and I'll see if we can do something. So within a day, I reviewed what he got, what his previous application and the gaps. And I said, look, I can support you. I've got a full-time consultancy contract on at the moment, but I can support you. Can you make time? No. Have you got any time? This is perfect. You'll never get another call like this. And eventually he said, look, I've got between 8 PM and 2 AM for the next 2 weeks. And I said, brilliant. Have you got any weekend time? And for that time, we wrote a grant and we bounced it backwards and forwards and we edited and reviewed and edited and re-edited and won. Right. I doubt I'll ever be able to do that again. Honestly, I doubt that. That's all that look used up. Never be able to do that again. So all those things I've just talked about, I've put on the next slide. But I can't emphasize enough that this is not just about developing or researching a technology area. It's about thinking about building a business and using grants to de-risk the process. So you've already got a lot of business risk in starting a new business. When you apply technology to it, the risk is exponential because you've got a lot of unproven items and ideas that you've got to solidify and prove. And where you start will not be where you end. It never is. You may fix the problem that you set out to fix, but it won't be the vision that you had originally. You have to evolve that as you go, and your partners and the strength of your partners, the strength of the process, having an external audit partner, i.e. a grant funding body, looking at what you're putting together and guiding you and giving you feedback is just phenomenally helpful. And so that's what I do. So I help companies to look for those networks, often working with research and innovation teams, often going and finding academics that have got key skills that you might need to bring, and industrial technology partners that can help you get from the next stage where you've gone from applied research through development to get to market. That's not to be sniffed at. It's very hard in its own right, and there's lots of failure points, potential failure points to that. But if you start off with a great idea outlined, you will stand a good chance of getting your grant. You might not get it first time. So as I said, that's the one time. That's the one time that I think we can do that. I have won other grants first time round, and in fact, I've done 3 or 4 SBRIs now, where we've won first time. But there's probably a year's worth of prep in reality in doing that. And the European grants are very similar. You've got to put a lot of background work in. So Marcus touched on this a little bit, why use grants? What is that all about? Why spend our money, taxpayer money, to fund innovation? And it's because of the risk, right? It's so early stage and you're so far from market that there is literally no other way other than by putting money into a technology company to get it to market. And as I said at the outset, finding equity-backed investment is inherently difficult if you're too early. But sometimes you can find angel investors, and there are lots of good angel networks around, but they're not as they don't have the appetite that a founder would have. They're certainly not as passionate about your business as you will be. And at the end of the day, which I'll come on to, everybody wants a return on this money. And so the British government is putting taxpayers' money in here because it wants you to be successful. It wants you to start a company, prove the technology, have economic impact, but it really wants you to employ people. It wants you to bring that technology to market, and then it wants you to sell it elsewhere. Because if you can export it, that's really good for not just your company and you, but it's good for the UK PLC, UK as a whole. So that's the purpose. It's to reduce risk, but the objective is always to try and find a big success. This is actually true of venture capital as well. They are also looking for big success, but they're looking for it at a much later stage. Everybody wants a return on investment. And if you read any investment, venture capital investment books, I would suggest reading 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Actually, it's a fantastic insight into what they're looking for. And it is needle-moving, game-changing investments that don't just build a good business, but actually return a huge return for the venture capitalist as well. And you've got to think, actually bringing capital into a company isn't just about getting money. It's about getting access to a wider network of finance professionals as well. And it's also quite often it's a stepping stone because VCs there isn't one tier of VCs. It's tiers of finance, and as your company grows, if your capital requirement is such that you need much more funding, the fact that you've got VCs backing you already puts you a much better chance of getting the next tier of funding. And it's a little bit like grants actually, but just at a later stage. So where do you look? I'm going to gloss over this really quickly because our previous speakers have got far better slides on it than I have. So I suspect I've got a bit of a wider view on funding opportunities just because of what I do. And the business landscape is changing and funding landscape is changing quite a bit. So in the last few years, we've had a lot of devolved governments, and those governments are now starting to be funded with their own projects. And here in Leeds, we're in a great place because actually they've already put bids in to support and fund healthcare technologies. So I can't speak exactly about the details of the programs yet because they haven't been launched, but there's something like I think it's 500 million assigned to start with to local authority, to devolved authorities. But that's the start of a program, so it's a series of funding that will come. I would say if you're based in and around, if you're based in the West Yorkshire Combined Authorities area, then keep an eye on what's going on their website. I know that's another website to add to the long list. Mark's got about 50,000 on his presentation, but things will be coming. Funding will be coming through that route, and it will help. So there's some real practical things that you need to do when you start looking at your technology and what you're going to build. It's really keen to identify the risk areas, but it's also keen to put and this is a little bit counter to what Charlotte was saying, but this is talking about national and international grants rather than a charitable grant. So it's a different viewpoint. But you do need good budgets, good project management. It's got to be appropriate to the funding. So you can't say you're going to fund part of a programme with the grant, but you haven't got the rest of the funding lined up. You're much better to divide up your project and apply for different grants, and you can do that strategically as well. And actually, that's what I would always say is start at that point and build a grant strategy, because you probably won't win first time, and certainly not in 2 weeks. You're going to have to be resilient. Not winning, is extremely difficult emotionally. I'm not sure if this is offensive to anybody, but when you don't win a grant and you've put your heart and soul into it, they've effectively called your child ugly. They've told you that your idea isn't worth funding. It's not that at all, actually. These calls are so competitive. If you're not in that top 4, 5, 6, 7%, it varies from call to call, you're not going to win. So the effort you put into the preparation, the effort that you put into writing and having the best possible application you can stands you in the best stead to be successful. Take the advice, talk to everyone. Notwithstanding, you have to protect your IP, talk to Marcus. And if you don't win, use the feedback constructively. We'll give you feedback. Sometimes you get assessors that the feedback's a little bit off the wall, and there's lots of comments online about that. But in reality, usually the feedback is fairly consistent, and that's helpful. So use that, use it constructively to build a better call the next time, and keep going. Just keep going. Be belligerent about it. When you've got your first funding, start applying for your next funding, because you'll need it quicker than you think. It runs out like before you've got it, pretty much. Even funding that might take 12 to 18 months to deliver your project and report on it and do all your monitoring and everything and get your impact assessment, it will have gone way before you expect. And so as soon as you've got your grant, carry on with your strategy and be able to start applying for the next one. You can make lots of assumptions, and actually having a grant is often a useful lever to applying for the next one. So my advice is use the grants to de-risk your technology, use the grants to de-risk your business, work in partnership until you're at the point where you can sell your product. It might be a minimum viable product, or it might be a limited version and you've got a wonderful plan to develop it a lot further, or raise finance to scale it up. But start trading. You'll learn an awful lot at that point, and for the few months that follow, it'll be really hard, but it sets you up to be a fantastic business. That's it. That's what I do. I'm an engineer by background, so I have a particular view on developing technology. I've done high reliability systems and consumer electronics, which is selling mass volume communications technology as well, software and hardware. I did that for the first 15 years of my working life. And as a result, I have a fantastic network of developers, engineers and scientists, which I like to lever into projects so that the projects stand the best chance of being successful. Thank you very much.
Maybe.
If you've got any questions.
Thank you so much, Ian. Yeah, so if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. I'll just stop sharing.
Yeah, sure.
See if there's anything in the chat.
Sit, all gone to sleep.
Anybody got any questions for Ian? I think it was really great peppering in some great tips and tricks as well in terms of funding. I think that's always appreciated. I'll give it another couple of seconds, but it doesn't look like we've got.
Can I make a point?
Yes, please.
On it's 2 weeks to the deadline point. If you need any funding costs for staff at the trust, just look at the university, our finance departments need 3 weeks.
Yes.
At least. And I'd say that's, at least. So, yeah, we get a lot of we really want to apply, we have to apply for this. You look at the deadline, you're like, not going to happen.
Yeah, well made. Well made.
Different companies come the last year, like less than 2 weeks. And I was like,
You can't do
It's
anything with
impossible.
this, yeah.
how would you work? We can.
Even the amount that you've got to write and the appendices that you've got to produce, you haven't got the mental capacity to write something from scratch in 2 weeks. You used to do this for a living, or still do this for a living.
Yeah.
How long would you say from a horizon application?
Horizon.
Yeah.
Just for writing 2 months.
Yeah.
At least for the second stage application. Innovate UK a month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Something like 6 weeks.
six weeks and then 6 months for Horizon. It depends on where you fit in.
It does.
But the point that I think you're making, though, is like being unsuccessful, you've started to build that argument to put that business plan together that is both going to inform your team, right? You've all bought into this and it's material that you can tap into as you're going forward. But it's an overhead of running a business actually to consider.
There's a great viewpoint that entrepreneurs are risk takers.
Yeah.
And this comes through really strongly when they're asking if you can write in 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Can you do a grant application in 2 weeks? No, because you've got a lot of prep to do before you've got all the material ready. And often the comeback will be, but it's got to be worth putting an application in, hasn't it? Well, no, because you won't win. And your feedback, if you're not well prepared, your feedback will be so skewed because of your lack of preparation.
And the one to note with Innovate UK is you can only apply twice for the same grants. So that's another sobering part to it. And the other one that we're aware of is AI is being used a lot.
Yep.
As much as it is for academic submissions, and it hasn't been ruled against. It's just the reviewers are seeing so much of it that they're cynical, and also you've got the whole question of hallucinations of there being false claims made. So again, it's just being very careful. And Charlotte's points were great.
Yeah.
Like and the storytelling bit is so powerful, and it's.
So I would say you can use AI, but you've got to use it appropriately.
Absolutely.
It won't do everything for you.
Yeah. It might help break the back. It might help, so the way that I've been using it sort of in the work environment is you can have a vast amount of information, and there are within most grant awards a framework for what they're looking for. Mm. And again, I go back to Charlotte's point, read the instructions and keep a register of, it's asking me for these things. And there's a scoring chart within most Innovate UK stuff. So you can even score yourself. I did have one client that said, I got AI to understand the scoring system and then asked it to score my application. And it said I got 80%. And why did I only get 60% from the reviewers? And he's saying, well, therein lies the value of AI. It's giving you appreciation of where your strengths and weaknesses are. And therefore, what can you do to actually raise the bar because you're in a very competitive environment?
That's a whole other subject area, isn't it?
There are so many different topics from this afternoon's discussion. It is where we're here to illustrate a point and to hopefully, as a wider community, become better at being successful with this.
Absolutely.
We do have one question in the chat that I think actually maybe all of our speakers potentially could answer. So it's any advice on how to build the right consortium to prepare for a bid without a call? So actually, how do you do that preparation work?
Don't start 2 weeks before the deadline.
It's a topic that's emerging within Horizon because consortium are definitely what this is about. I think did I make the point that you've typically got 2 or 3 leads that will do the major piece, And what you're looking to do is become a consortium of maybe a dozen or 18 organizations. We've got facilities where you could, there are databases into which you can put that question. I think it's almost a workshop in itself. We may well find people that are familiar with Horizon that could come in and coach some of our businesses. So as much as the work that we do is about, much of our major work is around coaching people to go in front of investors more successfully. And this whole topic of how to build a working in consortium could be another topic to look at. I don't know, Bev.
So I wouldn't use the phrase consortium, actually.
Yeah.
So I often refer to it as collaborators and partners. And I I make the distinction between what they are because of how they operate within the project.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you can have in some projects, you can have subcontractors. So you can just bring in a subcontractor.
Yeah.
You might consider they're part of a consortium, but they're probably not in your long-term plan. Once you've got through that, you're probably using the business aspect, you're probably going to build some full-time resource of your own at some point, but you're probably not going to build a clinician in full-time. We might, if they're a founder, they might be a co-founder, but you're probably not.
And I think for me, the topic to look at is within the bigger awards, especially where you're needing multiple things, is to read the small print to what they allow for.
Yeah.
And this is in so many walks of life. You can be really close to success, and part of your paperwork or part of your network that you're bringing into it doesn't have a passport or has a bad record on their accounts or something that can throw out the bid. So some of this is around due diligence, because there is a sobering part to both grants and equity, especially in early stage equity conversations, is they're looking for a reason not to talk to you because they will invest an enormous amount of time in talking to those people that they want to invest in. So doing your housekeeping, making sure that your paperwork and your relationships are robust is actually a vital overhead to look at.
I think it was on Lee's slides, it might have been Marcus's actually. They talked about management team. I think it was on yours, wasn't it? Management teams are absolutely critical, and that's really difficult. You have to talk to your collaborative partners about that, because it can be a make or break, specifically when you're going for equity-backed investment. They invest in the team much more than they do the idea.
We are running out of time. Thank you so much. Just a big thank you to all of our speakers from today. So Lee, Marcus, Charlotte and Ian, your wonderful. I don't think we've got okay, fine. We haven't got our next education session planned, but I think we've got some good topics today. So you can plan some things for future sessions. But if you don't have anything going on next Wednesday, we are running our Innovation Club, which is held online 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And we're going to be covering digitising processes to improve productivity. We're going to have 4 of our innovation pop-up members presenting on their solutions and how they're working with LTHT. So I think Rob, you're going to be putting some details about that in the chat. So please do come along to that if you are free next Wednesday. It would be much appreciated. And yeah, thank you all for attending today. And we'll send out some more details about the next educational session via the mailing list. So yeah, thank you again, everybody. Thank you.
What's your It's just saying the CDA with Belinda is on holiday this week, so I can't change the event. I'm afraid. Yeah.